After a software glitch, as you may have heard, allowed thousands of inmates in our state to walk out of prison early.
Yeah, this after a 50-page investigation is released, painting a not-so-pretty picture of serious failures within our state's prison system. Those failures allowed 3,200 inmates, many of them violent felons, to be released onto our streets early. The glitch started in 2002, but was first noticed in 2012, yet 3 years passed before anything was done. The investigation found that while no one person is to blame, both upper management and lower-level employees at DOC were apathetic to the tragic impact releasing prisoners early could have on public safety. We know 2 of the inmates released early are accused of killing people while they should have still been serving time in prison. And we're learning this morning that the family of one of those victims, 17-year-old Cesar Medina, has filed a $5 million claim against the state. Medina was killed during a robbery in Spokane in 2015, allegedly by DOC offender Jeremiah Smith, 12 days after he was mistakenly released from prison early. Joining us this morning is the attorney for Medina's mother, Chris Davis. We appreciate your time. I want to start with his family because it's one thing to lose a son, a 17-year-old boy, and to deal with that, but then to learn that he was killed by a man who should never have been out of prison when that crime happened. How is the family coping with all of that?
Well, they're devastated. I mean, no parent should be alive to see their child die, and when you consider the egregious mistake that the department committed and how systemic it was, it's adding insult to injury, definitely.
So a $5 million claim sent to the state. What is the basis? It seems obvious, but what is the basis that his mother and you are using to file that claim?
Well, the basis really is the gross incompetence of the department. It's been substantiated now with the governor's report. It's also based on the fact that the incompetence is systemic. It's from top to bottom. It reaches the highest level of the Department of Corrections. The damages are substantial. The innocent death of a 17-year-old boy. He was Veronica's oldest child out of 3 siblings, and the entire family is devastated.
What do you think is the likelihood that this claim would be successful? Because this seems to be a case where everybody recognizes the egregious nature of what has occurred at the Department of Corrections. The governor, the former head of DOC, Dan Paciocchi, repeatedly apologizing, acknowledging responsibility for what happened. So do you think you're going to have an issue in getting the claim that you're asking for?
Well, in my experience in over 22 years of practicing law and bringing claims against governmental agencies, it's one thing for what the department says in press conferences, and it's quite another on once the case reaches litigation what the lawyers are going to say. So almost always in cases like this, the lawyers for the defendant, or the Department of Corrections in this case, will probably try to perhaps blame Cesar, perhaps poke holes into the closeness of the family to try to lower the damages that may be recoverable. But it remains to be seen. We're hopeful, the family is hopeful, that given the way that the governor has approached this problem, that the Department of Corrections, even during the claims process, will continue to take responsibility and will resolve this claim quickly for the benefit of the family.
There are people who have a different view of this because they look at Jeremiah Smith, for instance, and in the other case, a woman in Bellevue who was killed in a fatal crash, and the man who was allegedly behind the wheel, her former boyfriend, also one of these inmates, released early, now charged in her death. And there are people who say that, you know, perhaps they would have still committed murder had they been released on time, and the fact that they happened to do it when they were released early in that time frame, that the state shouldn't be held accountable for that. What do you say to those people?
So legally, that's a pure speculative argument. The fact of the matter is that they were supposed to be incarcerated. They were released due to the incompetence and mistakes of the Department of Corrections, and because of that, they went out and committed other crimes, including the death of Cesar Medina. So those arguments, I don't believe, would be admitted in a court of law, because I think it's quite conclusive that they should have been behind bars when they committed their crimes.
Very quickly, had Jeremiah Smith not been released early, do you think Cesar Medina would still be alive today?
Absolutely not. Cesar Medina was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Had Jeremiah Smith not been in that location with a gun, robbing that particular business, Cesar would be alive today.
All right, Chris Davis, we appreciate your time this morning. Back to you, Casey.
Thanks, guys. 9:19 right now, and still ahead if you're